Garvey lives, Messiah lives. Brothers and sisters, you may be aware that this is the 6th of Mosiah, also known for my Jamaican family as Jamaican Independence Day. And like people anywhere in the black world, whenever we have independence observances and celebrations, many questions arise like, how independent are we really? What is independence, and do we have anything to celebrate? One of the best ways to answer that question is to take a serious look at the history and the politics and the culture of our people. Well, 3 years ago in 2022, I was able to host a conversation between Elder Cecil Gutsmore and my father, Brother Leader Bandakar, entitled Jamaica History, Politics and Culture. So we're going to share part 1 of that conversation with you right here now, which takes us from the Jamaica independence in 1962 right up until the 90s period, and then in part 2 we go from the 90s up until today. And so we hope that this enables us to, aid us in our reflection of the observance and celebration of Jamaica independence, and with the benefit of our exploration, that we may continue to strive for the truest forms of independence and total liberation which are yet to be achieved. Garvey lives, Mosiah lives.
Tendai greetings, kings and queens, brothers and sisters. Tendai giving thanks unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai, Mudzimo Mokolo, give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie, African power and African liberation for all African people around the world. Yeah, man. We're there. Yeah, this is Shakara live and in session, you know what I'm saying, this year in a Black History Month 2022. And for those who are watching internationally, Black History Month in the UK, remember there, is celebrated in the month of October. And usually throughout Black History Month, nothing's a go on. And I usually take time out to do at least one session live on Shakara Speaks for the people them. Normally I'm doing a variation of a presentation in which I'm running down the history, yes, of Black History Month and the value of history in terms of correcting a lot of or solving a lot of the problems that we face as Black African people in today's world internationally. But today, this year, I figured it would be good, yeah, to focus on a specific nation, yeah, majority Black African nation of our people, and take a bit of a deep dive, yeah, into the history, the politics, and the culture of that nation. And it's one of the nations that I carry heritage from in terms of my paternal line. My maternal line comes through Antigua, and both lines come through the beautiful continent of Mama Africa. But it's a valid conversation to have in terms of highlighting Jamaica, because there have been for a long period of time discussions around the need to become a fully liberated republic in terms of getting rid of the Queen of England, yeah, and then Barbados. Them said beat we to the punch, yeah, last year in November, and ever since then there have been a whole more conversations surrounding the idea of removing the monarch of the United Kingdom of Great Britain as the head of state of the nation of Jamaica. And so this has been an ongoing conversation, and it was highlighted to me even more because for the last month, yeah, there's been a whole heap of conversation about reggae music and who reggae music belonged to. And this was precipitated by the fact that a dancehall artist from Ghana ventured to suggest that reggae music belongs to Africans. And there were many Africans from Jamaica who were incensed by this because they said that it belongs to Jamaicans and not Africans, yeah. And the fact that the dancehall artist by the name of Stonebwoy in question identified Jamaicans as Africans didn't seem to, settle the tensions and the high vibrations of many brothers and sisters any further, because when you get down to it, what you realize is that the people them really had a problem with being identified as Africans. Yeah, that was the real issue. And so there's a whole heap of conversation to be had around Jamaican history, Jamaican politics, and Jamaican culture, what that says about who we are and what kind of a republic, yeah, we would become as and where we would become a republic. And so we want to do that. We want to engage in this conversation through taking a trip through the history, yes, of the political climate of Jamaica, particularly from independence in 1962, yes, and see where we get to from here. So what I'm going to do is introduce both my guests, and then we're going to hear a short presentation from each. Then I'm going to have some conversation with them, and if we got more time, we'll open up, and you can post your questions as well in the chat as well. Yeah, utilize the chat, kings and queens. By the way, like up the video as you come through, whether you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, and share the link far and wide. Yeah, share the link far and wide. And also do utilize the Patreon. Yeah, if you like the content and you want to see more of it, use the Patreon account in the description to the video. And all offerings are gratefully received. Right, first and foremost, kings and queens, I'm going to introduce you to a lifelong activist. I was born and raised in the Pan-African community in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and I don't know life without this man. He's been an activist from before me born, and he's still on the road, kings and queens. He's also former lecturer at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, Mona campus, and currently identifies as an independent researcher. Welcoming Elder Cecil Gutsmore. Greetings, Elder Cecil.
Greetings, my young brother. And let me say how pleased I am to be on your platform.
Yes, sir.
In part for the reason that you just gave,
yes,
which
sir.
is that I knew you from before you were able to say Tendai Maori properly.
That's
and
right.
whether I'm saying it or not, it probably is another matter. but from then, I've admired the way your father brought you up and your mother brought you up and what you've become. So I'm not only just admiring, but actually respectful of what you've done and are doing. So I'm happy to be on the platform, and equally happy to be on your platform with your father, who has done great work. I remember him when he entered the scene, and what he had done organizationally is massive and important. So I'm really happy to be on with you.
Give thanks, Elder Cecil. And without further ado, as has been mentioned, Elder Cecil said that he knew me from before me could say Tendai Mwari good. And the man who taught me to say Tendai Mwari is my father, who is the one of the founding fathers of the Al-Kebalan Revivalist movement, and remains the only remaining founding father. And is the spiritual leader of the Al-Kebalan Revivalist movement, a man who was raised in the beautiful island of Jamaica, and is also an independent researcher, activist for close to 40 years, about 40 years, standing, kings and queens. Greetings and welcome to Brother Leader Bandaka. You're on mute, Brother Leader. Brother Leader, you're on mute. You can't hear me?
Something is happening, read a voice.
Yeah, he's on mute, don't worry. Yeah.
Tendai Mwari.
Yes,
is that better?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Apologies. Tendai Mwari. I bring greetings in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, Al-Kebula and Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people upon the face of Mother Earth. Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory, giving thanks and praises unto Mwari Nyakusika, God, the creator of the universe, to our great ancestors for all mercies, great and small. And amongst those mercies is the blessing of being on your platform this evening, Brother Shakara, giving due respect to our elder brother present, Elder Cecil Gutsmore, and to say I am proud to be able to say that, yes, I was present at your conception. I was also present at your birth.
Too much information. Too much information. You know what I mean? Too much information.
And I am indeed proud and pleased at how you have blossomed and how you manifest in the community, setting some excellent examples. And I'm looking forward to this evening. I know it's going to be something very special and something very profound, another gift to the African world community. Tenda worry.
Okay, Kings of Queen, we're gonna get into it. Yeah. By the way, let me just draw some ancestral energy into the building. Yeah, the proverbial building. The background that you see behind you at the moment is an image of Nanny Falls. Yeah, in Moortown, in Jamaica. All right. And so I'll just bring the spirit of Nanny, yeah, in the building, so to speak. I've had the pleasure of being to Nanny Falls, and it's just the vibration, the energy, is amazing, yeah. And so we're walking with the spirit of Nanny, right? You know. And so what I'm gonna do now is just hand over to Elder Cecil. Me and Brother Leader are gonna hit the background for a second and hand over to Elder Cecil, who's gonna give his opening remarks. Then we're gonna hear from Brother Leader to give his opening remarks, and then we're gonna get into some conversation. All right. So once again, Kings and Queens, as you come true, lick up the like button. Yeah, lick up the share button as well, and the Patreon if you so wish. Elder Cecil, you want to say something before we go to you?
No, as long as I'm being heard, I'm happy to go.
Yeah, you are being heard clearly. All right. So take it away, Elder Cecil.
All right. I believe Jamaica to be an important place. I was born there. I grew up there. I spent a third of my life there. I'm now in my late 70s, and 50 years of my life were spent in the UK, and the other 28 spent in Jamaica. The first 17 of them, my childhood and early youth, were in Jamaica. I actually was born there in 1944, in the breeze blow of that year, the hurricane, if you will. And my father, who wasn't actually in the island at my birth, though I believe he was there at my conception, he was actually farm working in the States when I was born. And he left Jamaica in 1951, and the family took a decade to be reunited. So I came in 61 as the last of them. Now, very briefly, I'm African Jamaican, and what that means to me is something to do with how the forces that were visible in my youth and that have since become visible to me as a researcher and activist framed me. So I was born in the North Coast town of Buff Bay, and banana boats went by out in the sea, and the train, Jamaica Government Railway, went through the town, and on one day of the week would collect bananas from the local railway station and conveyed them to Port Antonio, where the boats now stopped, contrary to the days before the railway, when all of those little ports, if you go there now, the jetties are largely gone, but they used to actually come into those little towns along the coast and collect bananas, or bananas be lighted out to them. Now, so it matters that my childhood was the time of the emergence of the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party arising out of what our people are in their last phase of resistance in the 1930s had done to produce the first legal and proper trade union movement on the basis of which the political parties were developed. So I was educated in that moment. My granny was a big Bustamante follower because lots of ordinary working folk had been inspired. Buster was really calling upon what they did and absorbing it as his own creation. But in fact, what happened in the late 30s was the Jamaican people coming once again onto the stage of history. And I grew up with that. During my childhood, the Cuban Revolution happened. During my childhood, the Federation of the West Indies came and went. 57, 58 is when it was formed. 3 years later, it was gone. I remember when Mr. Manley, who was then Prime Minister, Norman, not Michael, the son, called the referendum. I remember big on the front of the newspaper, the Gleaner, the word referendum, and Mr. Mackenzie, our teacher, explaining that the Latin word for refer back to the people. I remember the political meetings in the town, and I knew that it was possible that Mr. Manley wouldn't win the referendum. The issue was, what were the Jamaican people going to get out of it, and the feeling that they were giving too much. The British hadn't put enough into that federation, and so it was to be paid for out of the pockets of the people, and most of the Caribbean people were in Jamaica, which meant that Jamaica was people were funding the federation, and that is why Mr. Bustamante won the referendum. I remember, like it was yesterday, Bustamante, who had a very broad Jamaican accent, saying on the night of the referendum, "I have won," and meaning I have won. And after that, Mr. Manley was driven out of power, and the following year, Jamaica became independent. I left Jamaica the year before, and I stayed in the UK. And the crucial thing about the UK is that I came here intending to be a Christian pastor. There's a library in Neasden, just up the road from where I live, and I discovered that I didn't really believe in Christianity at all, and that it made more sense to try to serve the people than to serve God. And so that's what I've been doing, or trying to do, with my life ever since. And I went back to Jamaica in 1997 and spent 11 years back there. And it was an important moment to go, because what had happened is that Jamaica was in the aftermath of what America and American-run institutions had done to the place. You have to understand that Michael Manley was quite wrongly and foolishly and wickedly targeted by the United States of America and the Jamaican middle class, who decided idiotically that Michael Manley was a communist. Now, I had done some Caribbean historical research here in London, and I knew from that research that Michael was an anti-communist. That's what he was at the LSE. His father took him home to Jamaica to create a national union to go with the Jamaica Labour Party that was the alternative to the communist-dominated and certainly left-dominated trade union formation that was there, leaving aside the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. I don't know how the Americans could have perceived Michael Manley as a communist, and that misperception effectively destroyed Jamaica. If you go and look, you will see the rising crime rate, you'll see the rising murder rate, you'll see the destruction of the economy. The economy wasn't a great thing, you know, but it had potential, and largely that had been destroyed subsequently. So during the time that I was back there, the place that I lived in, on the cultural side, obviously reggae had been established in the decade of my youth and just after, before I left and during that phase. But when I went back, something else interesting and important culturally was happening, which is that contrary to the general view that dancehall was corrupt and that there was nothing good in it, I actually decided that maybe that wasn't entirely true, and that there was something there to be explored. And it just happened to be the moment of Buju Banton, of Anthony B, of Sizzler, and of a wonderful movement that some people call street gospel, that was effectively gospel in reggae, or reggae in gospel. And it was just a wonderful moment to be exploring the popular, because this was stuff that the masses were listening to. They were coming out to the concerts. and so on. In addition to that, it was a wonderful place to go back to, not only because of the fresh fruit and the fresh air, but there's a wonderful artistic community there. Painters of world class, pottery of emphatically world class, and more. So I spent 11 years back in Jamaica, and it was a wonderful decade plus one. I didn't intend to leave and come back here. That just kind of happened. And I'm now decided that I'm going to spend the rest of my days here, unless I get a whole heap of money that will make me comfortable with being there, which is one of the things you need to be in Jamaica, unless you want to, the Trinidadians say, scrunt, and I don't particularly want to do that. So the politics of this moment is dictated by the way in which America and imperialism impose neocolonialism on our territory. I don't actually believe that the business about republic particularly matters, but I want to leave that for the questioning. I believe that stuff is happening there around reparations, and that in fact the sentiment behind it is okay, but the whole approach raises questions for me. So I'm really keen to participate in a discussion, question and answer, after we've heard from Brother Leader Bandaka on Jamaica recently and Jamaica then and now. Thank you.
Giving thanks for that, Elder Seth. So important information, and it's good to have people's personal connection, yeah, to the island, to the nation, and how we come to where we're there. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, me born in England as a result of a lot of these migratory, practices and relationships. You know what I'm saying? And some might say fortunately, some would say unfortunately. I think I'm mostly in the latter camp. You know what I'm saying? Well, I said, God, it's all good. And whatever brings us here,
African come out all over the place.
You know what I mean? The most important thing is that we're African and we give thanks for life. All right. So right now, I'm gonna bring forward Brother Leader to give his opening remarks. And people in the chat, feel free to post your questions. We will hopefully have some time later on to open the chat so a few people can come on. Ask. Feel free to ask questions, add to the information, or even challenge the information substantively, and we'll receive your comments and we'll read them out, or we'll bring some of you live later on. So like the video, Kings and Queens, share it far and wide. Yeah, share the video far and wide, and also do bless the Patreon in the description if you are so moved. Brother Leader, are you ready?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Right, me and Ellis are going to go into the background, and I introduce you once again, Kings and Queens, to Brother Leader Bandaka.
Tenaimwari, Rumbidzo Kunamwari, Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Giving thanks again, Brother Shakara, for your work, for your commitment, and also for the blessing of having our elder brother, Cecil Gottsmore, to share this platform with us, with the absolute wealth of knowledge and information and wisdom that our elder brings. When we talk about Jamaica, of course, we are talking about an absolutely beautiful land known as the land of wood and water, the land of the eternal summer. These are terms that have been used to express the beauty of the Jamaican land, the land of sun, sea, and sand. These are terms that have been used to describe the environment, the atmosphere of Jamaica. That is a gift from the Almighty, the Creator. When we also talk about Jamaica, we're talking about the land where there were indigenous people occupying that land. Some sources call them Arawak, some sources call them Carib, some sources refer to them as Taino. But these were real people, real human beings. And then came the Spanish, who felt they had a God-given right to just impose themselves upon the people of the land, claim that they discovered living, breathing human beings, and then unleash the most vicious brutality upon them, starting in 1494, followed by the British in 1655. More brutality, more barbarity, more savagery. Of course, this is where, not that there were not African people in that region even before then, because evidence shows that there were, but we know that the wave of that aspect of the Ma'afa, where African people were invaded in our motherland, enslaved, captured, conquered, enslaved, and dragged across the Atlantic into the Caribbean islands. Jamaica was an island that was used as an island specifically for what they called slave breaking. So that was like a drop-off point, and a point from which they subjected our ancestors to the most vicious, fiendish acts of inhumanity in order to subdue us to a position of accepting this evil system of enslavement. From there, brothers and sisters, let us remind ourselves that when we talk about Jamaica, we're telling the story of African people, our ancestors who resisted from the moment we were brought into the island of Jamaica, from even before we got off the ships, we were resisting. We were fighting against this vicious and evil system of enslavement. And so we remember Nani and the Caramanti, or so-called Maroons, and the resistance, the wars of resistance that they waged against the British. We remember the Taki revolt. Shall I just put it in perspective, time perspective? We're talking about 1728 to 1740 under Nani of the Maroons, and we're talking about 1760 with the Taki revolt. We're talking about also the 1831 Sam Sharp revolt, where Sam Sharp uttered the words, I would rather be hung on the gallows, on yonder's gallows, than to live as a slave. And where Africans rose up in 1831, again, against this vicious, heinous system of enslavement. Now, bear in mind, all of these uprisings, all of these revolts, brothers and sisters, all of these insurrections didn't just impact on the enslavement system or the colonial system in Jamaica. It had impact right across the British colonial system, or the British enslavement system, right across the Caribbean, and even had impact on America, the United States of America, where we were also enslaved. We're talking about the 1865 Morant Bay Rebellion, led by Paul Bogle. Again, Africans rising up. So even though slavery is now so-called abolished, beloved brothers and sisters, the system of oppression, exploitation, and degradation was still viciously and barbarously in place. And our ancestors rose up in 1865 to resist that system again. So we're talking about a history of African resistance against enslavement, against colonization, against oppression. And this continued, beloved, right on into the legacy of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, we hail him all the time, beloved brothers and sisters, who founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World in 1914 with the aim of liberating 400 million African people, which was the estimated total of African people around the world, and to build an African nation on the continent of Africa that could defend and protect the lives and the interests of African people worldwide. What a vision, beloved brothers and sisters. That too came out of the island of Jamaica. And the resistance continued. The Garvey movement had a tremendous impact. We know Papa Garvey went to the United States of America, where he reestablished the headquarters of the movement, but then he came back to Jamaica in 1927. And the response from the people of Jamaica was of a kind that was never ever seen on the island before. Thousands of people came out to receive Papa Garvey and to express their vision, the vision and the hope that they saw and they felt in the man, and which sent a clear message to the colonial oppressors. We're talking about, brothers and sisters, coming on into the 1830s, uprisings, workers' uprisings, sparked by the Garvey movement, if we understand the history of that particular period. And then we saw, let me say before that, that Papa Garvey established the first political party known as the People's Political Party in 1929, where he sought to organize African people into a viable political force and to strike out for our total liberation in that island. As I said, coming on into the 1830s, in the latter part of the 1830s, we saw the establishment of the People's National Party, which was then led by Norman Washington Manley, and then his cousin, beloved brothers and sisters, his first cousin, a man called Alexander Bustamante, then in 1943, broke away and established the Jamaica Labour Party. Those two parties are still in Jamaica today. They have been ruling the people of Jamaica for the last 78 years. They are a neo-colonial force that has been imposed upon our people by the colonialists and the plantocracy at the time to defend and protect their interest. They were well invested in by this particular element to defend and protect their interest against the interest of the African masses of Jamaica. And I just want to say very quickly, brothers and sisters, that this force is a neo-colonialist force that does not provide government for the people, but is an agency for the imperialist forces. The conditions that we see in Jamaica with their high incidence of crime, high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty in Jamaica, the challenges in the educational system, the lack of safety and security that many are experiencing in Jamaica at this time is deliberately designed. And let me just quickly pick up a point that our elder Cecil made in relation to Michael Manley. I don't believe for one moment that there was a misunderstanding or a misconception of what Michael Manley represented. They knew he was not a communist. They knew he was not any kind of a revolutionary. they knew that. It was misinformation, deliberate misinformation. And the purpose of the misinformation was to indirectly suppress the forces of African liberation, because Michael Manley was forced into a position where he had to countenance a certain political leaning to have any credibility amongst the masses of the people in Jamaica, to have any political credibility, so that he could win the elections in 1972. He had to posture himself at least as a politician of some form of radical ideology. He was not that, beloved brothers and sisters. And so I just want to say that the spirit of revolution remains in the masses of the people. The Rastafari movement that was born directly out of the Garvey movement has always been in the vanguard of African liberation in Jamaica. I am proud I had the experience of growing up in Jamaica and going to what we call Nurse Henry's School and Jonestown Primary School and Camperdown High School, beloved brothers and sisters, because I was able to experience the revolutionary spirit that was alive in the 60s and the 70s. I had an uncle who was well invested in that movement at the time and who did and said things in the home that affected my consciousness, planted seeds in my consciousness, beloved brothers and sisters, that helped to get me to where I am today. That revolutionary spirit is still alive and well in the people of Jamaica, and all of the atrocities, beloved brothers and sisters, and anomalies that we see within the politics and the economics of Jamaica is deliberately designed to suppress that revolutionary liberation spirit. I, brothers and sisters, hand back over for the time being to our moderator for this evening, our brother Shakara Tatenda. Tatenda Mwari.
And I'm right, Brother Leader, giving thanks for that overview of the history. And it reminds me, that there's a artist by the name of Super Cat, where I have a tune called Jamaica, and he run down the whole history of Jamaica in about 3 minutes. So check out that tune there, that'll be Kings and Queens. But it goes into less detail about the African rebellious spirit than Brother Leader just did. So we give thanks for all of that. There are many people in the chat, family. I'm not going to highlight everybody right about now, but I do want to highlight Mama Chenzira Kaina, who is a member of the parent body of the UNIA ACR RC 2020, which is the organization founded by Papa Garvey, Marcus Messiah Garvey, the most honorable. And so I just want to highlight that our mama is tuned in and locked on. And welcome, Mama. Give thanks and big up everybody in the chat. Utilize the chat well, and I will, trust me, I'll get to your comments and all these things. All right. Okay. So I want to begin here because, like I said, I want to focus the thing in the so-called post-colonial era and all these things. And when it comes to independence, 1962, yes, the nation is made independent. We're given a flag and a motto, and a national anthem, and the motto says, "Out of many, one people." All right. Can I ask you both, what was the politics of independence? What was the politics that resulted in Jamaica becoming an independent nation? And how was that encapsulated in the motto, "Out of many, one people"? Anybody can go first.
Okay. Jamaica became independent in the moment of the failure of the West Indies Federation. The people decided that, by a small majority, that the Federation wasn't for them. And there's a quick decision to go and negotiate with the British, who were already in the moment of being willing to create not post-colony, but near-colonies. All of those places were well prepared, with leaderships well groomed and well disposed to carry on white power and imperialist exploitation in a new guise and under the leadership of people who looked like us. That's what happened in 1962 in Jamaica, and it happened everywhere else in the African world. Sometimes white power was brutal enough to try to say that they were not going to set up neo colonies yet. They were going to try to maintain a direct white power, settler colonialism. And in those places, we had to fight for what we now have, the allegedly independent status, which is the exploitative neocolonial status that works entirely against the interest of the ordinary African and entirely in the interest of white power, imperialism, capitalism, imperialism, that terrible system out there, which is emphatically not ours. Just one other little point. That Federation of the West Indies wasn't just the only one that the British attempted to use in that allegedly decolonizing moment. They set up one in East Africa, they set up one in Central Africa, they set up one in Malaysia, and so on. It was an instrumentality. None of them worked, and each of them had specific objectives, anti-people objectives in all of the places where they were attempted. The British put no resources into them. What they wanted to do was to use these connections to help them run the period after they had formally left. The one in Central Africa included Northern and Southern Rhodesia, that they were then called, and one other African country. A white ex-train driver, a man called Sir Roy Walensky, was actually the president of the Central African Federation. A total absurdity. So, yeah.
Give that to
Go ahead. Yeah. I think firstly, what I'd like to emphasize is that in terms of the independence of Jamaica, there were two forces at play. The spirit of the freedom-loving African people of Jamaica, who, as a matter of principle, wanted freedom, wanted self-determination, wanted the right to assume mastery over our own destiny. As I said, it was infused by the spirit of the Garvey movement from its inception, and that there was a resurgence of that after 1927 when he came back in Jamaica and his activism in the late 1920s into the 1930s. Now, the forces that be, i.e. British imperialism, had their agenda, and their agenda was always to suppress the freedom or the liberation spirit of the people. And so what they did was to work through their agents, their selected agents, to derail the true spirit of independence or the true spirit of liberation of the people. And so the logistics of independence were determined by or controlled by the British through their imps that they were working with in Jamaica. And so the anthem that you talk about, they composed the anthem. Mm-hmm. The flag that you talk about, they designed the flag. And just about all of the symbolism, the Constitution.
It was written by them, yeah. It was written by, yeah.
They wrote the Constitution and Norman Manley may have had a role in that. He may have had a minor role in the process. But it's their project, and it's their project to ensure that this thing called independence would not displace them and their domination and control over the natural resources and the people of Jamaica.
Yeah.
So it was a sham. The whole thing was a complete sham, and it remains a sham today.
Now,
because it was to protect their interests.
I know you're I know you're upsetting. You're both upsetting a lot of people at the moment. Yeah. With this assessment of Jamaica, because Jamaican people are very proud of the flag and the anthem and all of these things.
I am Jamaican.
Right, yeah, we know this, yeah. But
I love Jamaica.
Time, I want to highlight this element though of the motto, yeah, because I've gotten this a lot recently in terms of not all Jamaicans are Africans, right? And the statistics that I've seen suggest that well over 90% of Jamaicans are in fact Africans, yeah. And then you got Africans who are, mixed with something else, but are majority Africans, right? Just this, I'm saying. And so, what was the consciousness behind? What was the reflection of the consciousness of the leadership of the elite behind this motto?
Tendai Mwari. So, thanks for bringing us back to that. I'll be brief and hear what Elder Cecil has to say on this. Yeah, and it's an important question. Again, they composed the motto, like everything else to do with the symbols and symbolism of the independence project, and that was again to water down the African spirit, to give this notion that out of many people, out of many races, presumably, we are this, we should create this oneness. It would have been more accurate to say out of one, many people, out of one cultural root, out of one content, or out of one geographical route, out of one source, one culture, one Africa. We are many Africans with one purpose, one aim, one objective. As Papa Garvey say, one God, one aim, one destiny. Out of one, many. As we say when we have Shumira and we are at the shrine, we bring our people together. We have a ritual to unite our people so that we come to the shrine in a oneness, and we say, we are many, but many is not enough until we are one. Yeah. So our source is unitary. It's one source. We are millions around the world. We are billions, 2.5 billion around the world, but we come from one source. But this was called doggery. This out of many one people was called doggery. And that was to justify as Mama Amy Jakes Garvey in one speech puts it, the ethnic minorities dominating things, quote unquote, dominating things in Jamaica. Tendai Mwari.
Elder Cecil?
I agree with all of that. It's important that to take a step back. I grew up in Jamaica with 1st of August being a major African celebration in Jamaica. And in the moment of independence, 1st of August.
Just to clarify, Elder Cecil, for those who may not be aware, 1st of August is Emancipation Day.
It's Emancipation Day, yes.
But they say them emancipation.
And our people who had fought, as your father correctly said, for hundreds of years, proudly, bravely, wonderfully, for the ending of enslavement, knew the importance of the arrival of formal freedom, the end of formal enslavement. And I was in a Baptist church in Buff Bay, and we celebrated that day as happened everywhere else in the island. Brother Leader will have had that as a child. And what happened in 62 was that they substituted the idea of independence for it, and the sixth became more important than the first. And they've had to struggle back towards acknowledging the importance of the first.
Never call it emancipendence nowadays.
Yes, indeed. And part of that, we have to give thanks. You know, the neo-colonialists have their faults, but sometimes they know that they have to mobilize around African identity. So we had a black prime minister who knew that you couldn't stay with the independence side dominating the emancipation side. And it's in that moment that there's a move back towards recognize. So there's all of that. It matters that the first set of national heroes didn't include any black people, right? And there's a whole movement to get Nanny in there, to get Sam Sharp in there, right? These things matter. It matters that, and I lived back there between 1997 and 2011. So yeah, and it's a place where people bleach in Bleachfield, right? It's a place where people of our color, especially women, have great difficulty being recognized for who they are. I know dark-skinned Jamaican women who own their place, and they go to open the door, and the person who's there asks them for the missus because they can't for them place. Or there. Now, this is one of the realities. So it matters that we recognize the statistics you are giving about the racial nature of the population is absolutely correct. If you count the mixed ones in with the rest of us, is 90-odd% of we black in Jamaica. But that's not the national mood. It's because it's run by something else. When I was living back in Jamaica, the issue came up of inviting Mrs. Mandela to come, and somebody in the Ministry of Tourism said they're not inviting a criminal. Yeah, I'm telling you, right? Garvey and Garveyism is not properly taught in the place right now. Great course at UWI, set up by Professor Rupert Lewis, but it's next to nothing in the schools. And when I was running Professor Lewis's course, we sent some students to ask the Ministry of Education why so little Garveyism. And they came back with the answer that Garvey is Jamaican, the exam board is Caribbean, and the other people in the Caribbean are not interested in Garvey. It's a God's truth.
It's madness.
So it's not dominated by African culture, even though you look at the music, you look at the pottery, the ceramics, you look at the paintings, and it's nothing but African. We're the only ones who created anything in the Caribbean. And that is emphatically true of Jamaica. It's black people being suppressed, African people being suppressed, and the moment anything that can be called a national culture emerges, it's what our ancestors, your ancestors and mine, and our people currently are doing creatively that make that culture worth talking about on a world scale.
Thank you. All right, give thanks. Just to say on the Cecil, the ridiculousness of the rest of the Caribbean not being interested in Garvey is made a nonsense of if you consider the fact that some of the most populous branches of the UNIA ACO in the Caribbean were not in Jamaica. Yeah, Cuba had more branches, Trinidad had more branches, you know.
It's
and then
true. And the population And the population of those islands
Yeah.
are just like, the British Caribbean, are just like Jamaica. I mean, Guyana and Trinidad, for reasons that we know of, Indian and African, but the rest of them are overwhelmingly African. And those places, you're right, were fundamentally Garveyite. Garvey did a Caribbean tour in 1937, where he never went to Jamaica, went to the Eastern Caribbean. And overwhelming. They had to keep him out of some of the places, the British government.
100%. All right, kings and queens, we're moving, and we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna be analyzing. Well, basically, we're going through the political history of Jamaica at the moment. So bear with us as we delve in. We just start with the independence period. There's more that can be said around that. But let's go forward a bit to a decade later. Now, bearing in mind that 1962 independence, 1963 is a massive onslaught against the Rastafari movement with the Coral Gardens massacre. And in fact, we could go a decade, well, just under a decade before that, to the sacking of Pinnacle in 1954. Bakawal. When was Bakawal? That was at 66. Bakawal was invaded,
down and built up Tivoli.
Right. So, which is now known as Tivoli Gardens. That was 66, and then you have in 1968 the Rodney Rebellion, so-called Rodney riots. For context, brothers and sisters, this is when Walter Rodney was lecturing in Jamaica at the University of the West Indies, and he left the country. And whilst he was out of the country, he was made an undesirable person by the government of Jamaica, under the premiership of
Hugh Shearer.
Now, to put that into context, Hugh Shearer was an African, to all physical intents and purposes, who was very uncomfortable with anything Black Power, anything Pan-African, and so a lot of literature, not just in Jamaica, mind you, in other Caribbean islands, anything Black Power was banned. And the stupidity of it rose to the level of the fact that even books like Black Beauty were banned. Black Beauty, that's about the horse. That's about the horse, right? That even the concept of Black Beauty was seen as too radical. In Trinidad, Eric Williams is said to have banned his own book. He wrote a book called Capitalism and Slavery, which was very informative, and then he became the president of Trinidad, Prime Minister of Trinidad, sorry, and then he banned him one book. And so there was a hypersensitivity around Black Power at this time. And that led to Walter Rodney, because of the work that he was doing among the grassroots people in Jamaica, being made persona non grata, banned from the country, and the people reacting to that. So it's a very broad question I'm going to ask. But what was the political climate of Jamaica that forced, that basically caused the government to be so hypersensitive around issues of Black Power and Pan-Africanism in that kind of way? And has Jamaica ever recovered from that, such a heavy clampdown on the Black Power movement in the late 1960s, early 1970s?
Well, the leader, or shall I go?
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai.
As I tried to indicate earlier on, that the liberation spirit, the revolutionary zeal in the African people of Jamaica has never died. It is still there. It has not gone anywhere. And we also have to remember that this was the era of the revolutionary 60s, where the Black Power movement in the United States of America, which was powerful, it was awesome, and it was impacting the Caribbean big time. It was also the era, again, the revolutionary 60s, where the anti-colonial movements of the motherland was also kicking. And that was also having its impact. If we go to the music, for instance, as Elder Cecil mentioned, the music, we see evidence of the the griots, if you will, the singers, you know, the songwriters who were bringing the message and the energy from the continent and from the United States of America and channeling it through the music. So the people were being impacted by the revolutionary forces that were, you know, were unfolding around the world. And in Jamaica itself, there was a Rastafari movement. There was a resurgence of Rastafari. And that is why there was such an oppressive reaction to Rastafari. That's why Choral Gardens happened in 1963. That's why going back as early, I mean, you mentioned 1954, but that was the destruction of Pinnacle. But the whole process started a year after Pinnacle was established. Pinnacle was established 1940, and from around about 1941, it's under attack from the same forces that constituted the political class of Jamaica, and that expressed itself in the PNP and the JLP. You know, Alexander Bustamante, Norman Manley. They were the same people. Norman Manley, in fact, was the lawyer who prosecuted Papa Garvey in one of the cases that they brought against him in court, and who insulted African people by referring to the standard of the red, black, and green as a dirty rag. You know, when the judge asks if he sees a flag in the court, he says he sees a dirty rag. Yeah, that is a disrespect that he had for African people. And so there was clearly and overwhelmingly the spirit of liberation was very much alive in Jamaica at the time. And that is why they were forced to pronounce Papa Garvey as the first national hero of Jamaica in 1964. And shortly after that, to make Paul Bogle a national hero. And then George William Gordon. But Papa Garvey is the same person you ran out of the country in the 1930s.
Yeah.
Well, your masters, your paymasters, who you are obviously working for, had chased Papa Garvey out the country to the extent that Papa Garvey said, I leave Jamaica broken. The man said, broken in mind, broken in spirit, broken in pocket. And he says, I will never return to Jamaica. Paul Bogle was hung. They hung him upside down. They chopped off his hand and hung him upside down. George William Gordon was also hung. So why did they make them national heroes? Because they wanted to quell the revolutionary spirit of the people by appearing to embrace their icons, these liberation icons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you know, the revolutionary spirit was very much alive, and it was coming from within Jamaica itself. But there were also energies flowing in from the United States of America and even from the motherland. Tendai Mwari.
Give thanks, brother leader. Go ahead, Elder Cecil. Just looking at the late 60s, early 70s, and that era, and the sensitivity of Pan-Africanism.
Important points have been made by Elder Brother Bandaka. The truth of the matter is that the world racist capitalist system has to manage the forces of resistance and revolution that we generate. And Jamaica, as Brother Leader Bandaka correctly says, was a major site of that. Now, the political party system that was established there was an oddity in the sense that the labor union, the major labor union, the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, was led by a political reactionary. And the other side of it was led by a man who was also a political reactionary, Norman Manley, but much more sophisticated and much more aware that you had to take some kind of left message to the masses in order to kind of satisfy them, and also in order to try to outmaneuver Bustamante in order to make a place for himself. And then this is happening in the context of the Cold War. And we need to remember that. The Americans, Brother Leader is right about that, don't want what is happening there to happen. So the PNP goes further left than they want, and they throw out the leading lights of the left, and that is the basis on which Norman Manley manages, with American permission, to get elected. And then he loses it because of the defeat in the referendum. And that puts into place the reactionary political party, openly reactionary political party of Bustamante, by which time he's still alive, but he's no longer the leader of the party, although he's president for life of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. And that, importantly, there is a class or class fraction, call them the elite in Jamaica, that are monumentally reactionary. And those people are the ones who try to contain Jamaica in the 60s moment of the Cold War. And by the time of the Rodney riot, which has been mentioned, 1968, Rastafari is imposing itself. Radical ideas are coming out in the music. The importance of African consciousness is coming out in the music and the popular culture. And they have to try something else. And that's where Michael, as you correctly said, and your father correctly said, comes along, carrying the rod of correction, said to be delivered to him by the Joshua rod, said to be delivered to him by His Imperial Majesty.
And it wasn't.
No, exactly. And it was a operation of complete deception. But that is what the system needed to do in order to try to contain the spirit of the people. Now, at this point, we run into a real difficulty because the system is so idiotic and brutal that it doesn't recognize Manley as its agent, Michael now, right? And moves against him in the most extraordinarily destructive fashion. You cannot understand Jamaica now unless you know that Michael Manley's PNP was not a communist entity, and that what the Americans and the Jamaican ruling circle did against him was completely politically unnecessary, and systemically destructive. And the island has never recovered from that. Gang violence of how many people died in 80? 800?
800.
Probably more than that. That's the official
800.
That's the official figure. And when you get an official figure,
that's the election of 1980, by the way.
Just as in 1865, the official figure is 400 and something of them killed. One of them, who had all the figures coming through him as he sat in the Navy capital in Port Royal, said 1,500 killed would be a modest computation. This is one of them on their figures. As it
so all on there, because we're gonna get that dynamic in a second. So right there, all on there, right? But let's contextualize the political violence by first looking at the economic realities, of Jamaica in the 1970s. Before we go there, let me just share this with you. Marcus Garvey was one of the first advocates of Black Power, and is still today the greatest spokesman ever to have been produced by the movement of Black consciousness. A race without power and authority is a race without respect, wrote Garvey. He spoke to all Africans on the earth, whether they lived in Africa, South America, the West Indies, or North America, and he made Blacks aware of their strength when united. The US was his main field of operation after he had been chased out of Jamaica by the same sort of people who pretend to have made him a hero. And that's Walter Rodney writing in Groundings with My Brothers. That was about his experience in Jamaica with the Brethren and Sistren. And he's got a lot of scathing critiques of the government in this book, but it's an essential reading, Kings and Queens. Pardon me?
The deeply reactionary place, Jamaica, and Walter's experience confirmed that.
Yes.
Experience of Rastafari
confirmed.
Really, still the experience of youth at the hands of the police confirmed that.
Confirmed that.
The capacity of the state to kill
yes.
openly and get away with it.
Yes.
Confirmed that, and there's no movement against it. The human rights groups are a joke. I lived there for 11 years back then, and you know they're a joke.
100%. So we get to the Sorry, go ahead, brother. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make 2 quick points?
Very quick. I do want to move it on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's something else I wanted to contextualize, but I'll wait until I get the opportunity. But let me just, if I could just make 2 quick points.
Yes.
I think it would be true to say, for context, in relation to the PNP,
yes,
that there were radical elements in the party,
right.
that pushed Michael Manley into a certain direction,
right,
including his wife, Beverly Manley.
Right.
She was far more radical than Michael Manley ever was. In fact, she attests that in the final analysis, their separation was ideological.
Right.
She could not go along with the pro-America, pro-IMF shift that he had made, because she knew what damage that would do to the economy and the destiny of the masses of the people. And she couldn't countenance it. She speaks openly, publicly about that. And there were other elements, like, for instance, Trevor Monroe, who was in the party at the time.
In the party at the time, it matters.
Sorry?
Trevor wasn't in the party at the time. He joined later.
But he was involved in the mix. Put it that way. D.K. Duncan.
D.K. Duncan and those are the figure of the kind that you have in mind. There were left elements in the PNP.
Dudley Thompson and people like those. Some of who regard themselves as Pan-Africanists.
Dudley was a good Pan-Africanist, but he wasn't really radical.
No. But he presented himself when it suited him. He presented himself as such. He says he's a Pan-Africanist. I'm just saying that there were those elements in the party who were pushing Michael Manley in a particular direction. And Trevor Monroe says that he, in a certain conversation he was having with Michael Manley, where he was trying to persuade Michael Manley to adopt a more radical posture. He said Michael Manley told him that if he wants to be a Che Guevara, he can go to the hills. He doesn't want to be a Che Guevara. Take it to the hills. You understand? And he said, well, I told him that I don't want to go to the hills. I'm just trying to keep you in touch with reality. The other quick point, I'll be even quicker. I'm just trying to make you understand where
good information.
American people are, and that your brand of politics is not going to work. Basically, is what Trevor Monroe was saying. The other thing is that you mentioned Baba Walter Rodney grounding with the Rastafari, but it was also the radical work he was doing at the University of the West Indies that was worrying the government. He was radicalizing the University of the West Indies, and he was having tremendous impact And a deputation was, sorry, Elder Sister, you can jump in if you want. I don't mind.
No, and he wasn't alone. That late 60s moment at Huey. Remember Rastafari called Huey "you blind" because it was UC and Rastafari turned around to you blind. So it wasn't necessarily a progressive place in its earliest days, but by the late 60s, some very important left figures were having an influence there, and Rodney was a big and perhaps the most important part of that.
Influence in that, absolutely.
Well, let's say, you know, so we don't deal with the left, you know, we don't deal with the left business still, you know, left right. We don't deal with the left right business, you know, we don't deal with the left and right and all them things there. We brought up that, you know what I mean? Now I'm playing, but yeah, but you know, I'm not playing, but you know what I mean. I'm being facetious, but go ahead, brother leader.
Yeah, no, I'll leave it there. There's something I want to, when you tell me when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
But there's something I want to introduce for context.
Yeah.
Which is an excerpt from the speech, the last speech that Norman Manley made to his party's what they call it now. Conference, yeah. It's the party's annual conference in 1969.
Do it now. Is it? Sorry, this is Norman Manley, not Michael Manley.
Norman Manley in 1969.
Do it now because we are moving on from Norman Lickamore.
Okay. So it was when he had resigned from the party, and this is in July 1969, and I think it will help to crystallize much of what has already been said. And these are his words. He said, it would be difficult to imagine a country, and bear with me because the lighting here is not very good, right? It would be difficult to imagine a country where revolution would be so certain to fail as revolution in Jamaica. Let me tell you why. There is of now no dictatorship in Jamaica. There is of now two strong parties who believe in themselves and whose members believe in them. Between us, we control the majority of the people of Jamaica. Right. Between us, we control the majority of people of Jamaica. There is no great political vacuum in this country. The majority of the people are either members of the PNP or members of the Jamaica Labour Party. In short, when the fact that we have a loyal police force, a loyal army, and that our courts are working in a fair and honest way, you will find that not one of the classic conditions that makes revolution possible are present in Jamaica today. Right. So point number one, they were preoccupied with the prospect of revolution.
Right.
Point number two, he was cocksure that the control which his party and his cousin's party had over the people, there was no scope for revolution. Right. And I also want to crown that with the fact that the first four prime ministers and first ministers of Jamaica were from the same family.
Yeah. Related to them one another.
Norman Manley, Alexander Bustamante, Hugh Shearer. In fact, Shearer is a name that links all of them. Michael Manley, the son of Norman Manley. There was a brief intercession with Donald Sangster, but he didn't last any time. He lasted 2 minutes.
After that 47 days, yeah.
Yeah. That in itself is...
All right. Give thanks for that. Important contextualization there. Kings and Queens, I'm going to get to the chat in a second, yeah? I'm going to get to the chat in a second, so don't feel neglected. We'll soon come to Uno. We just draw out all of the information we want to draw out, yeah? All right. So we get to the 1970s, and this is an important point now because there's a significant oil boom and all kind of different thing in the world. Yeah. At this point in time, neocolonizers are rushing to monopolize all of this oil around the world, particularly places like Nigeria and Saudi Arabia and so on and so forth. And it's also the point in time during which Jamaica and other Caribbean islands jumps into bed with the IMF and the World Bank. Yeah. Now, bear in mind, I forgot to say this before, that I read a statistic recently that suggested that in 1962, when Jamaica became independent, 80-something% of the population was illiterate. Yeah. I've read that recently. All right. And I need to verify that, but it is something that I have read. Yeah. But what Jamaica is a nation that one had bauxite, yes, which is essential to making aluminium, to aluminium production, yeah, and was producing various different agricultural products: onions, peanut, banana, potato, ginger, all kind of different thing, yeah, and had its own agricultural. It's an agricultural nation, basically, yeah. But this agricultural development, as well as the bauxite mining, was basically destroyed, yes, by the IMF and the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank in the 1970s. Could you just explain the impact that IMF and World Bank loans and the American government, yeah, in particular, had on the Jamaican economy, specifically in the 1970s? And because I am asking you to focus specifically on the 1970s, let me just contextualize this by saying that from the early 1900s, the United Fruit Company had already long been in Jamaica, acting as an agency of the American government, matching up economies, in indigenous trade, and also acting as an intelligence agency effectively against radical revolutionary movements, including the Garvey movement and other movements in the region. But that's prior to this period, yeah? So what is the relationship between Jamaica, the IMF, and the World Bank, and what impact did that have on the Jamaican economy?
Okay, it's a complex question and a good and important one.
Yes.
Now, the Jamaican economy at the time you're talking about, in the 60s and 70s, early 70s, was effectively bauxite, agriculture, tourism, and money sent back by people like us. What's he called it? The money that's sent back.
Remittance.
Yeah, that, right? That's what the economy was. Mm-hmm. It matters that the bauxite was effectively sold out by the people who negotiated with the multinationals that mined it. And so we weren't, although it looked like a boom, we weren't getting very much because they'd arranged it so that everything went to them. Agriculture was in a kind of decline. If you go and look at the figures, you will see that cane was in decline. That's one of the reasons why so many of our people migrated in those decades. Retrenchment was happening in much of the thing. Now, what happened in the 1970s was that because of the attitude that imperialism took to, and we just have to take a little step back. Brother Leader was absolutely right to read what Norman Mandis said. And there's an immediate contradiction because the PNP didn't have control at the time of the other part of the masses. And it's funded by the, in inverted commas, leftward movement toward African culture, toward Rastafari that Michael made, that enabled them to win that election.
In 72.
And in, right, so those forces needed Africanist, radicalist ideas in order to mobilize them into the PNP. That was Michael Manley's major achievement. And the fact that imperialism saw that as a threat, even though it wasn't. Michael never moved to nationalize bauxite. All he wanted was a little 0.5% extra on the bauxite levy. Right? It mattered to the Jamaican economy. What they did to Jamaica seriously affected the tourism industry. Agriculture was already in decline, and so on. And so it's that assault on the Jamaican economy for no good reason that produced the economic crisis that led to Jamaica becoming available to be additionally, for the economy to be additionally manipulated by the IMF and World Bank, and for them to impose conditions that were entirely destructive to the interest of ordinary people.
Right.
So,
You finished, Elisato?
yeah, I landed.
All right, give thanks. No, much appreciated. Go ahead, Brother. You're muted, by the way. You're muted, Brother. You're muted.
Tanai, it was also an attack on the projections of the Manley government at the time. As I said, the Manley government was forced into positions that discomforted Michael Manley. But the agenda that was being set was one of going for economic self-reliance, relying on our own resources in Jamaica, diversifying the agricultural industry, developing the agricultural industry, investing in the human capital in Jamaica through education, through training. I was in Jamaica, and as young as I was aware of some of those things that was going on. A war on poverty. They brought the crash program in, where ordinary people were given simple jobs to sweep the street and keep their areas clean, and they got a wage at the end of the week. If I remember right, it was something like $24 or $25 a week, which was significant money at that time. I remember on the radio hearing this advert or community announcement, and I remember that line, "No bastard, no there again."
Yes.
And it came out in a song. There was a song with that line came out in as well. And to understand the importance of that is to understand the Jamaican demographics. Where the majority of children in the inner cities, many of them didn't even know who their fathers were. And so it was, again, addressing this issue of looking down on certain classes of people because of their social dynamics and so on and so on. These were very important things. Issues to do with women, profiling women and the rights of women. Beverly Manley was big on that. She was behind that, and there was a women's movement in the PNP, where these women were very active and very radicalized and pushing forward some issues to improve conditions for women, better, not only better working conditions, but also what do you call it? Maternity leave, better maternity leave conditions, and so on and so forth. All of that is what was going on. Now, all of that, if it was allowed to really take form, would improve the life of the people. Improve the confidence of the people. Yes? And therefore would reaffirm the radicalism of the people, which is, of course, what the Americans and and other external forces would not have wanted. And so everything was done to destroy the economy. So that program, that strategy would not work. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Just to contextualize this a bit for brothers and sisters, so we're talking about the IMF, the International Monetary Fund.
Yeah, free education. I'm just throwing as well. Education was also made free as well during that time, you know, which was also very, very important.
And that's the only period in which education has ever been free in Jamaica, correct?
Yeah, including, and I remember this very well, including free, free uniforms, right? They had khaki materials that they were giving out to schools, free.
Right.
So children now whose parents would struggle to find uniforms, you know, they had free issue exercise books. I remember that very well. Free issue exercise books. So children whose parents would struggle to even buy an exercise book could get exercise books free. All of those things are going on in Jamaica at the time, and I lived it. I remember some of it very well.
Go ahead, assistant.
The question for me is, I agree with all of the stuff that you just described. And why did that panic the ruling circle in Jamaica and international capitalism? None of it really menaced them. And it goes to show how idiotic their racism is. Right. So we have basically minor cultural and minor economic elevation of the Jamaican masses, which is what the Manley program was about. A little bit of reorienting towards Cuba. Cuba offered education opportunities.
No, but Elder Castro, you obviously know that if you have a conversation with Fidel Castro, you are a socialist.
That's what I'm saying.
If you make a favorable remark about Fidel Castro, you don't have to have a conversation with him. Just smile in his direction and you're a communist.
Well, I understand. Yeah, but that's what we're talking about. How does it come to be that this man who is objectively anti-communist gets characterized by international capitalism as communist?
Right.
And
it's deliberate misinformation.
I know, but real deliberate destruction of Jamaica happens
as a result
to nobody's benefit.
All right.
Because the thing, one sentence, please.
Yeah.
Check it right for me. Yeah. The measures that we just talked about would only serve to improve the lives of the people, which is one step closer to empowering them.
Yeah.
That's what the forces of oppression do not want. And so they're menaced by the prospect of the African masses in Jamaica being empowered. They don't want that because that's an existential threat to American imperialism. So I'm departing slightly from you for a moment, Elder Sister, for the first time in the discussion. I don't believe that that's idiotic. I think that that's evil.
No, we can agree.
I don't think it's an idiocy. I think it's an evil.
No, we
can evil.
No, we can agree that they're evil because when you do something that's systemically destructive, not to your objective benefit, and just go back as we have to and look at what happened to the Jamaican economy in the decade we're talking about. Systemic destruction. Jamaica had never been the same again. And America didn't really particularly benefit
from it, right? I think I get the point.
Even the Jamaican ruling circle, right? And part of what happened, is that Manley, in order to ride the horse that had brought him to power, had to say things that he didn't believe in. You correctly say that he'd be being pushed by forces. But there's some other things that happened. At the popular level, people were confronting America and confronting the ruling forces. So I remember a song, "Who Run from Jamaica, I Bet Guess It Forever." You remember that song? Probably by the Meditations or some group like that. So the popular forces were contesting the ruling forces and those wicked forces, and they saw, and this confirms what you're saying, I think, but Elder Bandaka, that they actually did feel menaced by those developments, including the cultural ones, including the fact that Michael, in order to maintain his alleged control of the masses, had to be saying stuff that he didn't really believe in.
Just remember, Baba Maurice Bishop's speech, famous speech in the United States of America, when he talked about this pathological fear that America have of
Black unity.
Black
unity.
And the impact that it can, the direct impact it can have on the Black people of the United States of America. And remember that Grenada is even smaller than Jamaica.
Jamaica. This is true. By the way, fun fact. When Baba Maurice Bishop made that speech, there was a small protest outside that was led by, that was about half a dozen people out there, that was led by an individual Grenadian. And that individual Grenadian is the president of Grenada today. Yeah, yeah.
I hear you. Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah. I learned that.
We learn something new every day, don't we?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So he was at during that speech.
You should give me a heads up. You give me a heads up on that.
You must educate your elders.
Yeah.
Before you expose them to the public.
Yeah, you know. All right. Okay. I realize it's a little known fact, but I picked that up recently in a documentary that I watched on the Grenadian Revolution.
Right. This is very interesting.
All right. To contextualize this a little piece here, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, yes, and the Inter-American Development Bank. These are three institutions that work together. Yes, they're related to each other, and as far as the Caribbean is concerned, or the Americas in general, in order to get a loan from either one of them, it has to be sanctioned by the others. Yeah. And so particularly, and maybe this will go some way to answering your question, Elder Cecil, in terms of what they gained from this, America in particular, because what happened was they were creating economies that were indebted to America. Yes, because they were like the Jamaican economy became basically about serving the debt. So into the 1980s, I heard a statistic that said that basically 50-something pence, 48 to 50-something pence out of every Jamaican dollar, was going towards servicing a debt repayment or interest on the debt, that had been accrued by these IMF loans and these World Bank loans and these Inter-American development bank loans that were basically developed in the 1970s. And really what this meant, just to give people an overview of what this was what the era of structural adjustment program. What they do is that they give you a loan, but they give you conditions on the loan, and the term that they use is getting rid of artificial barriers to trade. What that means is, this is the terminology of the IMF and the World Bank. And what an artificial barrier is, basically anything that protects the indigenous labor of your nation. So you can't subsidize your farmers. You can't subsidize any industry for that matter, and you can't put any trade tariffs on imported goods. And so that put Jamaica in a position whereby indigenous farmers or indigenous agriculture couldn't develop, because it costs less to import banana and lettuce and cabbage from America
and fowl
and chicken than it costs to rear chicken or grow
10-year-old chicken,
20-year-old. No joke. It was being sent to Jamaica during this period of time, right? So what happened? And so this was the IMF and World Bank strategy, they had the nation in a place where they were not even just importing food, but they were importing seeds and importing fertilizer. And so what they were getting is a debt economy, that was perpetually in debt, to the American states at that at that time, and by implication, Western Europe in general, because all of them control the IMF and the World Bank. And anything. I see Elder wants to make a point, so go ahead.
Yes. Again, what you're talking about, young man of insight, it's very important stuff.
Yes.
I think it's important to know that a big transformation happened in the economic control of the world economy in that 1980 moment when Thatcher and
Reagan.
That they represent.
Yes.
So, and another step back, it matters that the provision where repaying debt, foreign and local, is prioritized in the Constitution. The Jamaican Constitution says that the first claim on the Treasury is the repayment of the debt. So that's been there since 1962.
The Jamaican Constitution that the colonizer dropped.
Yes, absolutely. You correctly characterized it in your first presentation. Absolutely right. And that's an indication of its nature, because and right. So the IMF it hasn't changed a lot, although there are big successful critiques of it since, but it hasn't changed a lot. But the IMF in the 60s and 70s particularly operates not in the way that you're talking about, which comes in that Reagan moment when they set up some new structures and impose. There's a film called Life and Death, which hopefully everybody has seen, which describes that moment in world economic change and world economic domination, where they say to Ghana, stop producing rice because you can get it cheaper from Vietnam. Yes. And in fact, they don't send them any rice from Vietnam. They send them American rice.
Yeah.
Where Jamaican agriculture, in particular dairy, right?
This is a good point. So just to emphasize, they destroyed fresh milk coming from the cow in Jamaica and replaced it with
dry milk,
powder rice,
coming
from America,
And so that development wasn't in place in Michael Manley's 70s decade, and that again almost idiotic but destructive liberalism, which our people incidentally shouldn't have signed up to, right? The neo-colonial class all went to Washington or wherever those agreements were actually signed up to them. Right. It's not imposed, or to the extent that it's imposed, it says something about how our rulers, black ones now like us, how their minds are set, that they don't see the consequence of what they're signing up to.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And so this is the reality. There's so much things that we could go into here in terms of what this economic warfare, which is really what it was, constituted and how it functioned, and how our governments bought into a lot of this economic nonsense that was being projected to us by these
World Trade Organization.
Yeah. So they basically them tell us that we don't know nothing about economics. Them know about economics, and so we adopted these policies under the guise of it developing some growth. Yeah. And the only thing that was growing out of this is American corporations. And British corporations and French corporations, and so on and so forth.
That was the idea. This is a globalist agenda.
Just to clarify exactly how calculated this was. These are economic policies that were being imposed upon a nation at the for the sake of getting money, a loan, and they tell you that you can't subsidize your farmers, but you have to import goods from a nation that subsidizes its farmers.
So heavily subsidizes its farmers.
Heavily. And I saw a statistic that they subsidize America for certain things to the tune of 130-something%. Yeah, so that they're not paying anything for production, for the production of. To clarify, subsidizing your farmers means that the farmers themselves don't foot the bill for the production of the crops. Yeah, so the tractor them pay for, you know what I'm saying, and you know what I mean, the tools them pay for, the land pay for, everything pay for. Yeah, and so you know their labor is heavily paid for, and so therefore it's cheaper now because the government is footing the bill for a significant amount of the cost. It's cheaper to import those goods, and then that same nation that is telling you to import those goods, those subsidized goods, is now telling you not to subsidize for your own farmer them. Yeah, that is the hypocrisy that is going on here. That same nation has protectionist policies around importation to its own nations. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And the difference is that you're dealing with an industrialized nation versus a non-industrialized nation. So therefore, the power dynamic is not the same. These people over here have much more resources to take advantage of opportunities than these poor farmers in Jamaica who need a little bit more help than these guys over here in America. So I'm just clarifying the whole IMF World Bank situation, yeah. And I want to move on to dealing with the violence that comes out of this, because the economy is depressed. And then there's a significant upsurge, and Papa Garvey is famous for saying something to the tune of, if anybody can get through the 70s in Jamaica, then we'll get through anything. Yeah, 2 sevens clash type vibration. Yeah, and so there's a whole heap of there's an upswell in political violence, and now we get to the point whereby we start talking about Shower Posse and Spangler and all of these things. Yeah. Just give brothers and sisters, because we've already given some good context in terms of the people's organization, the revolutionary movements, and so on and so forth. How does that all descend into gang violence as associated political parties? How do we make sense of this? Because it's been a very dominant dynamic within Jamaica's history that political violence, has continued from this 70s period until now. How do we contextualize that, and why that rose up in the first place?
Right. It's important to understand that a little element of violence has long been present in Jamaica.
Right.
Bustamante was, before he became the political figure that he became, a money lender, and he used to walk around with a gun on him hip, right? and he shot dead at least one person somewhere in 39, 40, somewhere there, and got away with it. So,
yes.
Right. So the violence has been there. The society was conducted on the basis of violence. The estates, Sugar and others, were protected by violence.
Yes.
This is tell a little story. My maternal grandfather had a piece of land on one side of an estate that belonged to a big man around the road, the Woodstock estate, back of Buff Bay. And my brother and I were walking through. Before that, the place, them run cow on it, so it was well manured, and then they planted bananas. Now, my brother and I, we're little children, going to the Buff Bay River mouth for a swim. And we're walking through growing bananas. You can't trod down. 2 little boys cannot harm growing banana plants, right? You're just walking through on the way to the river mouth, from a yard to the river mouth, a few hundred yards. And my brother said, run, because the busher man with a big stick is spotted by my brother, and we run, right? And as he gets through the fence before me, he's 3 years older than me and taller, and so on. And as I'm struggling through the fence, the man throws the stick and hits me in my head. Kukumaka stick him have, right? And that's how Jamaica was, right? So the violence was there, directed against the people. What happened in the And one other thing that matters. Some of the political competition between the two political parties from the late 40s on involved political violence. Bustamante had a seat in Kingston, and he was out-organized out of that place and ran off down to Clarendon to get a seat among sugar workers and some of the organization against him by the left of the PNP involved violence, right? So some violence was there right from the start, and people don't talk about it, but it's absolutely true. Now, in the 70s, the parties turned to alliances with gangs. That's actually to do with money and with contracts and so on. They turn to within particular geographical areas. What they call them? What are the geographical areas in
garrisons?
Garrisons, yeah. They turn to garrisons, and in order to keep control of that involved relationships between party police and gangsters, and that was violence, and you kept control of those garrisons using the violence of the youth that they armed.
Yes.
Right? And so a major extension of political violence to compete for political territory.
Yes.
As well as people who were developers, men with biggish money, who got big contracts. And what happened, and this is all, there's somebody called Don Robotham, who was actually Trevor Monroe's deputy, who ended up as a professor of anthropology at New York City University. And he wrote in the Gleaner a detailed account of the relationship between the parties, the illegal gangs and dons and the legal dons, and the guns, and the extent to which they were in the 70s importing, Mr. Siaga and them were importing guns, but the PNP side found that they had to import guns as well. And there came a moment, people can go and see it, where Michael Manley is saying, desperate and confused, that I didn't really understand that the state could be taken out from under me, right? Because the determination of that combination of American power and the local ruling class, with Siaga as its leader, had taken Jamaica from Norman, from Michael, by physical organized violence. And you can go back and look at the footage of shootouts in the street in the late 70s.
Yes.
And they did other kinds of stuff as well, including unnecessary shortages of food, including unnecessary shortage of petrol, including burning down of at least one old people's home, people dead, terror, right? That's how America and Siaga took Jamaica back from the fort that Michael Manley had assembled, liberating the progressive and radical and Africanist feelings that you correctly pointed Brother Bandaka, and the island hasn't recovered from it.
Kings and Queens, I'm gonna quick question. I'm gonna hand over to Brother Lena in a second, but just a quick question. I want to know if anybody has learned anything new from the conversation we have so far. Just type a 9 in the chat. If you're learning something new right just type a 9 in the chat. Or if you don't type nothing from it start to know, just give me a 9. If you learned something from the conversation. Go ahead, Brother Leader.
Tendai Mwari. Give thanks again for Elder Cecil's insight. Again, which is always spot on and very, very important. I tried to give a sense of the background and historical context to the Jamaica that we are discussing this afternoon in my opening remarks. And I want to stress that Jamaica, what we call Jamaica as a country or as a society, was born in sin and shaped in iniquity. The sin of the genocide of the indigenous people of Jamaica, and the iniquity of the enslavement, the genocidal enslavement of African people. And those were violent enterprises. And the violence has always been present to maintain control. That is the context. And our attempts to resist the tyranny of the oppressor was met with even more violence. And sometimes the mechanism of the violence was of such that Africans were made to enact the violence against Africans. When Africans were made to whip Africans, for instance, on plantations. You know, when, for instance, the Caramantes were corrupted enough, the so-called Maroons, to sign agreement with the colonial forces to capture Africans or to join with the colonial oppressors in any wars to put down uprisings. Again, that was manipulating Africans to carry out acts of violence against Africans in the interest of white supremacy. So that has always been that has always been in the DNA of the Jamaican society, that the oppressor, the enslaver, the colonizer concocted in the first place. That said, I grew up in Jamaica, and I remember Jamaica in the 1960s. I remember Jamaica where I was not preoccupied with anything named violence.
Absolutely.
You could sleep with your doors open. I remember going to church with my grandmother, night service, and coming back with her, dark, 9 o'clock, maybe even 10 o'clock at night, walking, and our church was not, you know, was a good little distance away from where we lived. And she'd be walking with our grandchildren from church, and there was never any fear of anyone attacking us or anything like that. And I remember when the energy changed in the 1970s. I remember. And the type of violence that ensued in the 1970s is nothing compared to whatever existed before. This was a new thing. Look, man, I'm in school playing cricket, and you hear a commotion, and you see two young men running across the cricket field, and you hear a police car squeaking into the driveway of the school, and you hear gunshots. This is a school, Camperdown High School, and we have to you just learn to hit the deck. I mean, everybody had to eat dust. While these two young men run across the schoolyard, and the police chasing after them. I'm at home in Jonestown, my grandma's home, playing police and thief with a little paper gun. Pishaw, pishaw, pishaw. And then you hear bow, bow, bow. And you look a young man come and drop at your gate, police shoot him them side. And he gets up with blood coming from his and running off. You don't know where he get the energy from. I remember a young man named Lassell Shaw lived up the road from my grandmother. I go to school, I come home from Jonestown Primary School, I come home for lunch. And the whole street is in uproar. Lassell just got killed. Gunmen came in and he lived with his mother, her only child. We used to call her Misha. I don't even know if that was her name, but that was our son's name, so we call her Misha. Went into the house. She had him under the bed. She pleaded with the gunmen. She even offered her life. Take me, kill me, leave my son, I beg you. And she cry and everything. And then push her out of the way. They heard a sound under the bed. And how the story go, they just put the gun under the bed. And it was machine gun. And just went, okay? Mr. Blake shop. I remember Mr. Blake, we used to go Mr. Blake shop on Price Street. We lived on Maya Street. Price Street is just the main road that goes across Maya Street. Mr. Blake shop. You could go to Mr. Blake shop where you used to buy Cock and Talk, we used to call Cock and Talk ball to play cricket. And other little things that you get from Mr. Blake shop. Right? Sleeping one morning, I hear my grandmother and another lady used to call her Aunt Ivy, crying and praying, oh Lord, oh God, what is wrong with these people? And praying and by the sweat of your brow, you shall eat bread. Why them gone in and do that to Mr. Blake? What happened? Them going to Mr. Blake shop, shoot up Mr. Blake. Everybody love Mr. Blake in the area. Shoot up Mr. Blake, burn and set the place alight. While Mr. Blake in there dying. Now, these things traumatizes a whole community. I remember as a child the impact that these things had. Mr. Foster, another shop on Price Street, the other side of Price Street, got shot as well, but he didn't die.
Yeah, you're making a very important point. Go ahead.
Right? So what was going on? Whatever violence was going on in the 60s, as a child, I didn't know anything about that. But coming on into the mid 70s, my God, man, it was such a transformation. And then the other thing was now the curfew, the police, the soldiers on the streets. You're walking to school and the army is out on the streets.
Yeah.
And then almost every day, there's a story of some young man get killed in the newspaper. The police jeep turn up and him attack the police jeep with an ice pick.
Yeah.
Or a thimble. Him throw a thimble at the police jeep. Right? But, there is a ex-CIA agent, former Angola station chief, by the name of John Stockwell.
Yes, I know the book.
And he has spilled the beans. He used to be up all over YouTube. I don't know if anybody can find. I can't find him these days. But he used to be on YouTube spilling the beans. And he speaks clearly about the CIA having infiltrated Jamaica and spread violence in Jamaica through the creation of gangs and drugs and the spreading of guns, this dissemination of guns. My brother has a school friend, and sorry to be so long on this particular issue.
Go ahead.
My brother has a school friend who tells us a story about him being involved with a politician, him and some other young people in the area, pushing party politics, giving out flyers, that kind of thing. And he said one day they came back to the politician's office and he pulled out his drawer. This is somebody I grew up with, He went to school, Kingston College with my brother, right? Went to high school with my brother. They were close friends. Okay? He's a brother that used to stay around our houses. I know him very, very well. Know his family, his mother, his grandmother, right? We went back to the politician's office and the politician pulled out a drawer and took out a gun and put it on the table. I said, which one on one control one of them? The man said nearly dude up himself. Fortunately, he made an arrangement for them to come back. One of them have to come back and when them to come and blah, blah, blah. Him say when him left the office, man, him run like him hear news. He never went back there. Right? So if he experienced that, how many more young men?
Yeah.
Right? You see,
sorry, just to contextualize, this is the situation now in an impoverished nation, whereby economic conditions are only getting worse, and there are strings attached to being able to manage where they're going, whereby you can get access.
Sorry, correction, Chakara. You said the right thing earlier on. You talked about economic warfare.
Yes.
So it's not economic conditions getting worse, because the government's economic strategy is not working. The economic strategy that the government wanted to put in place, the IMF and the American government did not allow that to happen. They forced this other economic situation upon the nation. Michael Mandy himself is on record saying the economic structural adjustment program has never worked for any third world country. And this was before he went to the IMF for this loan. So he knew that it was unworkable, because he's on record saying it. You see? So it's not an accident. It is by design. And when you can wage economic warfare on a nation and render the majority of the masses of the people in a state of poverty, then you can come in with your machinations and spread objects of violence and self-destruction among young people. Because it's mainly young people. And then the violence from the state onto young. Look, Jamaica is officially the second most violent nation in the world. Jamaica is the second, next only to El Salvador. Jamaica's rate of violence is 57 per 100,000 people. El Salvador is 62 or 63, something like that. Okay? You have nations like Japan, which is 0.2, to put it in context. Haiti is 10. You have Singapore, which is 0.2. Britain, I think, is 0.1 or something like that. America, which is a violent nation, is 7%. Sorry, 7 in 100,000. To just give you the context.
To be fair, brother, they export a lot of their violence, but that's another subject for
another time. Yes, whatever the chicanery is, I'm saying this is what we're suffering in Jamaica, and it's mainly our young people, young men, and we're killing 4 or 5 of our young men every day. We have them killing each other, and if it's not them killing each other, it's the police, it's the state. But it's a state directly or indirectly, because in the context of the violence in Jamaica, that is state manipulated. When a young black man kills a young black man in the context of the Jamaican society, that's a form of state killing. It's an indirect state killing. And when it's the police, it's direct.
I don't want to cut you off, brother, but because you're making you're making a very important point, And
this is something I lived.
I get it, and it's important because we're dealing with history, and it's very easy to do with history in very cold and detached ways, But you're making a very important point in terms of the human cost, and not just the fact that people are dead, or not just the fact that we can cite statistics or economic relationships, but when you look at the mental health of the people in the nation that is impacted by all of this, it's something that we need to factor into our historical analysis, and so I appreciate that. There's so many places that we could go with this. I'm going to do one thing and just highlight some text that brothers and sisters can read on this subject, and it's a essay by the name of a man by the name of Kevin Edmonds, and it's called Guns, Gangs, and Garrison: Communities in the Politics of Jamaica. And I'll read an excerpt for you. He says, the rise of well-connected, armed organizations like that of gang leader Dulus Coke in Kingston in Kingston's ghettos illustrates the way in which the geopolitical climate of the Cold War overdetermined Jamaican politics at the turn of the century, where the lines between good and bad guys were often blurred and sometimes totally contradictory. This was the context in which, starting in the mid-70s, the CIA conducted lengthy destabilization campaigns in Jamaica, consisting of the steady provision of financial support and covert arms shipments to supporters of Prime Minister Edward Seaga's pro-US Jamaican Labour Party, and therefore to the JLP affiliated gangsters like Lester Jim Brown Coke, leader of the notorious Shower Posse and father of the aforementioned Dulles Coke. I'm gonna read one more excerpt, and the reason why will be apparent in a second. While the arming of the gangs in this new era did not follow the otherwise strict ideological divisions of JLP, ideological division, the JLP did receive covert shipments of arms from the CIA in addition to other social control tactical equipment. The ex-CIA agent Philip Agee later revealed that quote, the CIA was using the JLP as its instrument in the campaign against the Michael Manley government. I'd say most of the violence was coming from JLP, and behind them was the CIA in terms of getting weapons, in getting money. Unquote. In Jamaica under Manley, dilemmas of socialism and democracy, Michael Kaufman suggests that Agee was even more explicit in that he charged that his former employers and the international aluminium companies were working with certain JLP supporters in an attempt to unseat the Manley government. Yeah. So I'm reading this to draw the connection between this social unrest and the economic policies associated with bauxite, aluminium. Yeah, just to highlight those dynamics, right?
And can I just introduce this to the viewers? This is a paper I was able to download from the internet. I hope you can see it. Yeah, because you can access it yourself. Edward Seaga and the Institutionalization of Thuggery, Violence, and Dehumanization in Jamaica by Professor Horace Campbell. Elder Cecil, you would know.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, very well.
All right,
it's worth a read. And it's on the internet.
Elder Cecil, brother leader. I was gonna ask you some questions to bring it up to date. Yeah. I was gonna go through the 80s and the 90s and so on and so forth. We ain't got time for that because it's after 10 now. But just to mention the fact that in the 90s, the Americans developed what was called free zones, yeah, in Jamaica, which were basically labor camps, whereby Jamaicans were making clothes for big foreign companies like Tommy Hilfiger. But the free camps, the free zones in Jamaica were technically not on Jamaican soil. They were considered to be American soil, yeah, and a lot of labor exploitation was taking place in that. I even neglected to mention that Chiquita, the United Fruit Company, became Chiquita, and there was a point in Jamaican history in which Chiquita workers actually went on strike against the company, and they were basically sent back to work at the point of a gun, and 23 people were shot and killed. Yeah, in that demonstration. On Michael Manley and his radical politics, or lack thereof, he after the ban on Walter Rodney in 1968, he refused to overturn the ban when he became prime minister in 1972, and for the duration of his premiership, the ban remained. Yeah. And in fact, he's on record as I've heard a brother who said he spoke to Michael Manley, and Michael Manley said in so many words, he's never going to uplift that ban on Walter Rodney. Yeah,
that is true. It's not the only thing in banning him. There's some more banning in him, and one that comes to mind is the tune "Fire Burning" by Bob Andy.
Yes, I had the pleasure of speaking to Bob Andy about this. Yes, I interviewed Babandi a couple years ago. In fact, it's the last interview that he did when he was alive. Yeah. It was I interviewed him and he spoke to me about this and the fact that Michael Manley was very, very sensitive about the dynamics of the Black Power movement and the Rastafari movement and songs that were being produced of that ilk, because he approached him about it at some dinner or something like that they were having, and he wanted to impose the fact that, listen, me had to read down around here, yeah. Babadi speaks about that in an interview.
Yeah, he had to assert that
burning, it's getting hot and hot. Yeah, that tune there. Yeah.
He had to assert that him is the man. Michael Manley. Right? Yeah. He had to assert that he is the man round here. You understand? To show you the mentality where he was coming from. Right?
People
don't understand this Michael Manley.
I'm gonna ask you one more question.
Could I just just make one connection? Yes. You know, the CIA, SIAGA generated modes of violence and gunmanship in Jamaica. It connects with here and that Yardyism, and quite a few of the most notorious Yardies came on the basis of arrangements between the SIAGA government in Jamaica and the Metropolitan Police and state forces here. And so it didn't just corrupt Jamaica, it's also a part of the state of affairs which we now live with, the gun and knife crime and
100%.
Deeply connected into that.
Yes, 100%.
And another angle to that as well is that although the evidence seems to suggest that Edward Seaga and the Jamaica Labour Party were primary in terms of the initiating the violence. There's plenty of evidence suggesting that, but it was not exclusive. The violence was by no means exclusive to Edward Seaga and the Jamaica Labour Party. That there were some violent acts that were being undertaken by certain elements within the PNP as well. Dudley, sorry?
That's undeniable.
Dudley Thompson himself, who we mentioned earlier on, is on record apologizing for his role in an egregious event that happened in 1978, I believe. The Green Bay massacre. I'm sure Elder Cecil know about the Green Bay massacre, where they lured JLP supporters. Onto one of them army camp.
Yes.
And just gun them down. Just shut them down. And shortly before he died, he publicly apologized for his role in that
vibration.
Right. And I do remember in Jamaica people saying that this gunplay was going on it was being led by both Seaga and Dudley Thompson. That was the talk at the time in Jamaica. And it also appears, and Horace Campbell suggests in this article, that they were both very good friends.
Right.
Despite how it appeared on the surface. They were both very good friends.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know, I can't confirm or deny. I'm just saying somebody who seems to know what I'm talking about.
One ruling circle,
Huh?
In one ruling circle. So it's
remember it started
with a friendship group.
But remember it started with two cousins.
Yeah, that's what I said. It started with the family, as you correctly said earlier, and the friendship group.
Both parties are funded by the private sector organization of Jamaica, who funds both parties to the tune of millions of pounds. Yeah? So they're controlled by one source, which really is controlled by the corporations in Jamaica.
Okay.
Right?
Kings of Queens, but there, I'm coming to you soon, I'm gonna skip over.
Those same corporations fund the human rights
NGOs.
There you go. Say no
Right.
more.
All right, so I'm gonna skip over Free Zone. I'm gonna skip over Tivoli Gardens in 2010. Yeah. And hope maybe these things can come out in the discussion. Yeah. But you all have said a lot. You've given a deep analysis of Jamaican political history, but we haven't got into things like the impact of Miss Lou in the 1960s and 70s, and you know what I'm saying, and all of these things that are on the more positive side. You've spoken about though the cultural renaissance that was taking place among the people and the activism that was associated with the arts and so on and so forth. Yeah. But today we are at a position whereby we're talking about republicanism and getting rid of the Queen of England and so on and so forth. Yeah. And so the question then becomes, well, after all this analysis, what should we be doing as Jamaicans, as African Jamaicans, as African Jamaicans in the diaspora to remedy all of these issues? Yeah. And is getting rid of Elizabeth or Charles III at this point the right way to go? Does it actually mean anything, or is it vain symbolism? Yeah. Or is there another means by which we should be looking to address these things? That's gonna be my final question. Then we're gonna take some things from the chat. I don't know how long you both have left. I had intended to end already, to be honest with you, but we're not talking.
We're not gonna run with you. Don't worry.
All right, cool. You know what I mean? So yeah, so answer that for me. In remedying all of these things today, understanding that everything that you've explained so far, the legacy of that still very much exists and impacts us today. I could have even asked you about the so-called Windrush and the impact of the loss of all of those minds and bodies sailing to Britain in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. And what that meant to the nation in terms of loss of intellectual and people power and so forth. But skip over all of that. Let's deal with today, and how we need to be organizing or developing our Jamaican people to remedy these issues today. What does it look like to you both?
Okay, let me dare to say there's really clearly no easy answer. Mm-hmm. You started off loosely speaking of post-colonial, and I know you don't mean it. I know you know your father's line and mine, that is neo-colonialism, right. And yes. It's the same old system in a new guise, mm-hmm. And the new guise makes it more difficult to mobilize again, because the people in that run thing look like you and me, and they exploit symbolism, African national color symbolism that we're committed to, and they're to some extent on our terrain, ideologically and well, certainly ideologically, and so it's very difficult. In Papa Garvey's moment, things were crystal clear. There was reactionaries amongst us that have always been, but the fact that white power as colonialism ran things was crystal clear, and you had to be blind not to see that, and you had to be comatose not to want to do something about it.
Right.
It is now more complicated. A lot of the stuff that we were talking about, where what looked like our brightest and best go and sit down and negotiate these idiotic arrangements like the WTO and that stuff that says that Ghana must stop producing rice because they'll come back, or Jamaican peasants produce little carrots, and they get outcompeted in the market by some big things that look like carrots but really aren't, that get imported from the state. So there's all of that difficulty. There's the fact that the Jamaica we're talking about, you mentioned it, Tivoli. 12 years ago, that state killed on its own figures 73 people. On Mr. Siaga's figures, 150. On somebody else's figures, 250 people. And then I was in Jamaica at the time, and a member of the JDF, Jamaica Defense Force, came on. The journalist said, "Is it true that you buried bodies in Maypen Cemetery that you had improperly killed?" And the nice young man from the army representative said, "I'm neither confirming nor denying that any of this happened, but whatever happened, it was under a state of emergency, and the security forces are entitled to do anything." And he stressed the anything, right? Now, nothing has changed since then. Police shoot young men in the same way they bring in one after another security measures, search measures, lockdown measures. It's a long, so it's a very difficult situation.
Yes.
I've now been out of there for more than a decade. But when I was there, of course, the people have the same energy of resistance that informed our struggle that your father described so well right from the beginning through to now. So that hasn't gone. But the level of organization, the trade union not doing anything, you can't get one of them to come to talk about the economy. It's a very difficult place to organize. So I don't know of any easy answers. And that is the condition now of the African people worldwide. We've been through the anti-colonial struggle, sometimes armed struggle, and we've all ended up under neocolonialism. And the challenge is this a permanent trap, or is there a mode of struggle that can liberate us from it? And I can't pretend to have any answer, but that's where we have to start from, because it's a condition that imperialism, white racist system, has imposed on global Africa.
Give thanks for that, Elder. So go ahead, brother leader. I know I've asked a very broad question, but tackle it any way you feel you see fit.
Yeah, Tendai Mwari, there's never any easy answers to a question like that, but we have to tackle the question because we have to end this nonsense, you know, and we have to know that it can be stopped. It's not going to be easy.
Yes, sir.
But if we don't believe that we can put an end to it, then we might as well lay down and die, because it's going to get worse unless and until we find a solution. And the solution has to be, amongst other things, in the legacy of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And it has to begin with widespread consciousness raising. Just what we're doing on the show this evening. Making this show and the work that you're doing, Shakara, more and more impacting, more and more powerful. Everybody who's tuning in. I don't know how many people are viewing at present. But if it's 10, then tell 10 more people. And if this is going to be recorded, you know, the 10 people who are listening or watching will tell 10 more people. If it's 100, then the 100 people tell 10 more people. That's 1,000 people who would have watched this. We have got to raise our people's consciousness. And then we have got to seriously answer to Papa Garvey's call to unite and to organize. Otherwise, he says, we will perish. We have to unite and we have to organize. We have to build organizations. And our organization cannot just be around campaign and protest. In other words, reacting to their negative stimuli. It has to be a proactive agenda. We have to know, first of all, what is it that we stand for before we even talk about what we stand against. I don't know how we can know what we stand against if we don't know what we stand for. and if we know what we stand for, then what is our agenda to produce that which we say we stand for? In a nutshell, it has to be about nation building, as Papa Garvey demonstrated to us. And what we mean by that is, Papa Garvey, his guidance to us was that wherever we are, we must organize ourselves as a nation of people. That means we put structures in place where we have a governing body that we have mandated to have executive control over our affairs and over our interests. We have institutions that we are building, educational institutions, political institutions, economic institutions, healthcare institutions, social welfare institutions. Have I said education already? Scientific and technological institutions, housing development institutions, institutions that can advance every aspect of our lives. We can do these things. If we don't believe we can do it, it will never happen. But if we know that it can be done and we're committed to it, just as how we did it in the days of Papa Garvey, we showed that it could be done. Yeah, that is the approach we have to take. And those of us who are parents, we have to take seriously the responsibility that we have to make sure that we cultivate the minds and the spirits of our children so they grow up to love their people, to know their people, to know their history, and to be clear about their purpose as African people. This is my son, Shakara. I can tell you, as he knows, his first full sentence, and I kid you not, was Africa must be free. His first full sentence, I'm not saying it was as clear as I said it just now, but it was clear enough, was Africa must be free. How did that come about? A record I had of one of the greatest poets I know, one of the greatest words artists I know, Anumiyapo, with a song, Africa must be free, Africa must be free. I used to play it over and over and over again. When he was born, the moment he was born, the first thing I said to him in the labor ward was, you came into this world to liberate your people. He knows that because I've told him over and over again. Now, that was the first thing I said to this child, just born, naked, don't even get a drop of milk in her mouth yet to comfort him. First thing I said to him, you came in this world to liberate your people. And I've spent every day in his growing up trying to reinforce that message, he and his siblings, trying to reinforce that message. And that's what we have to do. We have a powerful, powerful liberation tool at our disposal when we are mothers and fathers, and we have this mind, these minds and souls to shape and to orientate. That's a powerful thing, because we will win or lose our liberation fight through our children and our grandchildren. So that's what we must do, brothers and sisters. It's as important, and in some ways even more important, than ensuring that they are academically successful. That's important, don't get me wrong. But to impart in them a liberation consciousness. If we don't have that, then they will use the academic skills that they have against our people, and we don't want that.
Yes, sir.
That's my humble contribution in response to that very, very important question. Tendai Mari.
Don't worry. I am going to open up the line now.